From the Edge of the Web studios, here's what we're looking at this week.
So this was really exciting to us, and we jumped on the Verge story from Arlie Hartman. Obviously, we're in digital marketing. Obviously, we're doing a podcast on a regular basis. Google actually announced that they will start surfacing individual podcast episodes in search results. From the story, Google is taking the next step in making podcasts easier to find. The company will now surface individual podcast episodes in search results. So if anyone searches for a show about a niche topic or an interview with a specific person, Google will show them potential podcast episodes that fit the query. You talk about the goal of podcasts being able to be there for the mobile audience to be able to consume that right there. This is why we've been doing podcasts the entire time. Right. So we're really excited. And bring that show up real quick, or the search results. So we searched, I think, what was that search? True crime podcasts. Oh, this is the cybersecurity one. That's right. Well, it's kind of linked, true crime and cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity is true crime.
Yeah, you better believe it. And along with this, you can see the number of search results on the screen, along with an insert very similar to Knowledge Graph that actually has each and every cybersecurity podcast listed there, and the play button's right there as well. So you talk about something that's instantaneous information that Google's providing you. And what an incredible boon for anybody who's running a podcast on niche topics to be able to have that information right there. So what do you think about the new search results with podcasts in play?
Well, I think it's pretty exciting. Typically, I consume probably 10 to 12 different podcast episodes a week.
Oh, very cool.
It's probably one of the top ways that I keep in touch with what's going on in our community, along with Twitter and the like. But I think it's pretty fascinating because typically you rely so much on either user recommendations or the title or the person that is appearing on there to try to get an idea of what the topics are going to be or what the content is. I think it's pretty fascinating. I would be nice to be able to dial up a particular thing that I'm looking into or researching, and then being able to have just the episode search surface, in those searches. I think it's incredible.
Now, we've been relying on kind of some of the optimization inside of iTunes. Well, Google's parsing this content. I think it's going to be going into a level of transcription, automated transcription anyway, to mine this content, because it's not just going to go off of the titles or the descriptions. It's going to go down deep. And what a treasure trove of information that's going to be able to pull up. So this is the new level of optimization, folks. This is where blogs left off, right? When last we were focused, we're now in the podcast optimization realm. So if you're not doing a podcast, a shameless plug here, if you're in the city, right, in Indianapolis, you can come right down here and set up your own podcast at Edge Media Studios. Who is actually the Edge Media Studios is the news desk of digital or Edge of the Web Radio. Anyway, that was a terrible, terrible intro. Anyway, point is that podcasting is here to stay, and Google's tearing apart and giving us that right in the feed that we want. All right.
It makes you wonder, how long is it going to be before they start running that same technology through all of YouTube and then start having transcriptions of every video you've ever shared?
Yep, you better believe it.
And then starting to see your life kind of dictated out for you, on the web.
Well, that's a scary thought, actually. I don't want to be known by some of my old YouTube videos.
I mean, YouTube already offers automated transcription, so I bet they're doing it.
Yeah, they are. They do offer automated transcription with a flick of a button. So you better believe they probably already have it. They're just
enabling it to be seen or not, right? It's still happening beneath the covers. So
yep. Well, it was also happening beneath the smart speaker covers. Check this. That was a segue, kind of. All right. Anyway, over from Marketing Land by Greg Sterling, Alexa devices maintain 70% of the market share in U.S. according to a survey. 76 million units. Amazon Echo was at 69% 18 months ago and is at 70% market share now. Google Home has 25% and Apple Pod has 5%. Right. Boy, that was a failure to launch. So we can. The fact of the matter here is that in 18 months, their market share hasn't eroded. That shows such a future view of what they were planning, years before, that they've been able to solidly keep it and retain it over this entire period of time. And Google, I've never heard of Google having 25% market share of anything recently. Right. So, there's going to be a lot of talk we're going to have regarding security issues, but there has been a huge focus on security and privacy information when it comes down to these smart speakers. Can you scare the crap out of us right now on that concept?
Yeah. So for two things. One, I think that the article rightly pointed out, right, the price point has obviously been a huge driver for this. Amazon has led with an ecosystem of entertainment and the Prime membership and the ability of being able to deliver products to you quicker, cheaper, faster. Whereas I think maybe Google and Apple's more of an experience company with a higher price tag.
Right.
And where Google is more, how can we monetize what you're looking at and seeing to serve you ads? And that kind of goes apart when you start talking about like a Google smart device in the home, unless they're going to start playing advertisements while you're in your home and walking around in order to use one of their services, right?
Sure.
But I think recently you've seen there was some letters that were written by Congress and sent to all three of those providers asking about automated what we just were talking about, where you take it and you
Transcriptions.
Transcription. Thank you. Yes. So taking transcriptions and then having them reviewed by humans instead of by machines for QA purposes. A lot of people were very surprised by this. Apparently, that they would have a proofing solution for this offshored for people to listen through these chat logs and commands spoken and things like that, to verify whether or not their transcription algorithms were working correctly. Now there are several of them. I think it was Amazon and Google both now offer a way for you to opt out and also get rid of everything that you've logged up to that point, because they weren't really clear on how long they were keeping those transcriptions for.
At one point in time, they were offering that you can remove all of the daily recordings, and that was a bit tongue-in-cheek there, because they were just giving you the control of that day. So I guess we have to set a reminder every morning to get rid of all of it.
You set the reminder on the device itself.
Alexa, can you remind yourself to completely erase your memory?
If you set the reminder correctly, will she give the reminder, thus activating herself to do it?
Or is this in some sort of...
Well, I think you have to say, Siri, remind Google to remove my information every day, right? And if she speaks it out loud, maybe it'll pick up on.
But unfortunately, if the Google device gets memory gets removed, then it won't be able to remember how to.
Good point.
Oh my gosh, it's an unending loop. Oh, but I mean, to the point of security, you're purging that out. But there are so many fears of these smart speakers just monitoring us all the time, because the speaker's on. The speaker's always listening. It's just activated whenever you're actually saying its name.
Exactly.
So we can certainly unpack this a little bit later. But can you give us any calm of the concern in the smart speaker world?
So everything you do in life is a risk-based decision, right? Whether you get in your car, you get on a plane, you hook your device up to the internet, you install an eavesdropping device, every room of your home, including your bedroom. These are decisions you have to make. You have to make an informed decision on whether or not the conversations that you're going to have in front of this device are what you opt into. If you enjoy home automation, you enjoy the entertainment it provides, then it may be worth it for you. Maybe you don't put it in your bedroom, or maybe you only in your bedroom, depending on what kind of person you are. But if
no streaming cameras, please.
Exactly. But I mean, on the flip side, I think the other bit of it is that people are bringing these things into the workplace, and they need to make sure that all their employees know that they're opting in.
Yeah.
Whether they explicitly know it or not, they're walking into a room to have a discussion with you with one of these devices. They need to be blatantly aware where this device is. So I would recommend, as I've seen employers do in the past, I always make sure there's a large sign next to any sort of these devices, so that way they know implicitly this device is listening unless the red light is on.
That's a policy that people haven't thought about yet. I'm sure it's being embraced, but you're absolutely right. It's a cost reward, risk reward type of environment here, and certainly people enjoy all the automation, all the ease of engagement that these smart speakers offer. But then they freak out whenever certain ads start popping up that you didn't search on. We've experienced that ourselves. All right, speaking of something that you didn't anticipate, well, here's another one. This lands straight into our conversation today. From Krebs on Security, from Brian Krebs, Capital One data theft impacts 106 million people. On July 29th, FBI agents arrested Paige A. Thompson on the suspicion of downloading nearly 30 gigs of Capital One credit application data data from a rented cloud data server. Capital One said the incident affected approximately 100 million people in the United States and 6 million people in Canada. Check this out. The data included approximately 140,000 Social Security numbers, 80,000 bank account numbers. Importantly, no credit card account numbers or login credentials were compromised. So are they saying that the Capital One numbers weren't compromised, but everything that actually got them registered were? So, all right. So that was a huge news item, and one of the biggest ones, of course, in this year, but over the course of breaches and security, it's been huge. So, give us your take on what Capital One did as a response, and more importantly, how in the world can these credit card companies even protect themselves in the cloud space?
Sure. I think what you're starting to see here is the fears of founded or not are starting to come real for a lot of folks that have made that journey into the cloud. Like with anything, as it becomes with scale, right, you have the risk of that then being there. Right. And the folks that were traditionally setting up these data centers and controls and things like that for on-premise traditional infrastructures are now moving into the cloud. A lot of those folks that learned all the lessons and got all the scars and burns from when they put it in, when it was physical or virtual inside their own data centers, typically not the same people that are doing these new things in the cloud. And you'll have a lot of folks that have done it for the first time or maybe for the third time going into the cloud because it hasn't been around that long, right? So I think these folks are starting to understand all the traditional security problems haven't gone away just because you went to the cloud.
But you're saying also the generation that's actually doing this, they don't have the experiences of old on the hardware side of things. They're maybe a little bit more liberal with their security.
Yeah, I mean, I think what it comes down to is I'm not here to paint a generation a particular way. I'm just saying that
millennials. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that there are folks that have earned those scars and have been through the problems. They've made the mistakes before.
Sure.
Whereas this happens with every type of new technology. A lot of times the attacks don't change. It's the people that are setting them up and the people that are taking advantage of them do. So. What this really represents is there was a system in place to receive credit card applications, right? And that was, you filled it out online and submitted, right? And then that goes into a bucket somewhere and gets processed and then retained for some sort of legal requirement. What this young lady did, Paige, who had, as you could read from the article yourself, had several problems, mental health history issues and things like that. And it was a very tragic case, but she also had understandings of how Amazon worked intimately, had worked at Amazon at one time. So she understood kind of how the systems worked very intimately, right? Probably more than a lot of people who are using it, and definitely a lot more than I do. But what ended up happening is it's the same problem that happens for a lot of companies, whether you're on-prem or in the cloud, is you have a device that is trusted to do a thing. We call this in security, traditional security, the confused deputy issue. So have you ever watched Andy Griffith?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So imagine Barney Fife, right? He's got one bullet, right, in his pocket that he's allowed to use.
You're literally correlating Barney Fife with our online security.
Yes, absolutely.
Fantastic.
So the confused deputy has the rights to do one thing, right? He has the rights to unlock the door and let the prisoner in and out. He has the right to load one bullet into his gun, not fire it. But he has a certain set of things that he's allowed to do.
Right.
I, as an attacker, I have no ability to open that cell door, and I have no ability to load that gun. But what I can do is I can confuse Barney into doing something pretending to be Andy, or convincing Barney that Andy's told me that he should do something, right? So he's the confused deputy. Same thing happened here. This is what's referred to in technical circles as a server-side request forgery, and it's where I can trick a proxy or something that's going to commit between me and the back-end systems into doing something it's normally going to do, but doing it in a different way.
Got it.
So Paige tricked it into giving a token back to her that allowed her then to make calls to different parts of the infrastructure that were in AWS and then pump that data back to her and put it into another bucket where she could then take it and go through it. But it was gigabytes and gigabytes. So I would like to say you talked a little bit about their response. And I think this is one thing that really is the number one job as me coming in as a security professional, right, is putting together an incident response plan, because you're not judged today, as fortunately as it is true, you are not judged today on having a security incident. You are judged on how you respond to that security incident, right? And it's transparency, it's speed to action, it's being very clear with the people impacted and making sure that you offer some sort of
enumeration of some
exactly, right. We know what happened, what it was, how it happened. We're very, very sorry. We take security very, very seriously, and offering the typical credit monitoring and other things. But I think overall, Capital One does have a pretty good security program. I've known folks that have worked there, and I've worked with them in the past, both as somebody who did work for them and provided security tools for them. We would get audited very heavily by Capital One. I think they worked with the authorities pretty quickly, and once they were able to talk to it when the indictment hit, they immediately put press releases out. So there have been other firms, perhaps like Equifax being an example of someone who did not handle it very well when it first came out. And in fact, some of their senior leadership was indicted for insider trading and trading stocks when it got announced, before it got announced. So there are good and there are bad, but I think really overall, you spoke to the key is the way the public will judge you, and you can see their stock is down a little bit, but not that much. It's on how you respond and how quick and forthright you are about it.
Absolutely. I just hope that companies don't actually weigh the investment in security to their investment in their own response, and you'd hope that they just wouldn't put on a nice song and dance and not have the focus on top-level tools.
Agreed.
You would hate that would be even a calculation.
Yeah, you've seen, in fact, they've just announced that I think the Attorney General of New York has already announced a plan to sue and investigate. There's a class action lawsuit working its way through against Capital One right now. So a lot of this will come out, just like it did with Equifax and it did with others before. There'll be an investigation, and they'll get to the bottom of it.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to see more of our content, or especially more of this week's featured guest, including a full-length interview, head on over to YouTube and search for Edge of the Web. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell if you want to see digital marketing news as it happens.